There's another name, Deion Kane, former Pittsburgh Steeler from 2019, played 8 games for the Steelers over the course of 2 seasons, had 3 touchdown passes for the Birmingham Stallions. Winners, went off, stole the show. Was cool to see that.
Yeah, he got MVP, I'm pretty sure. Game MVP.
Was he MVP? Was he the USFL?
So.
Good for him.
MVP for the championship game. Yeah.
Yeah. I know the quarterback was the one for the league, who's also, he was a baller. 3 touchdowns. I think it was like 171 yards because he had 101 kickoff yards as well.
Yeah.
You look at this guy, he's only 26 years old. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to sign him. He's not coming to Pittsburgh. You think this guy gets another opportunity? Like, at what point do you look at a guy like that and say, you've been in the league for so many years now, and it just didn't work, and now you're going to do this? Like, do you get another opportunity? Do you believe it'll translate this time, or do you just look at it and say, this is just a guy that it just doesn't work out like that?
Well, I think, especially for receivers, there's always going to be someone who can argue, change of scenery, in our system, he could be really good. Like, this guy has some talent. I think also the special team stuff really helps him. Just someone who's kind of electric, I guess you could say, with the ball in his hands, like capable of making those explosive plays. I think that gives him a real leg up too. Like you said, it probably won't work for the Steelers. Like, it just doesn't make sense for the Steelers. But yeah, I absolutely think this guy gets a chance somewhere. I don't know. There are too many teams out there. There are too many roster spots for him to not get invited to training camp. And he's done too much to, I think, not earn that, to at least get another look.
So I think the craziest part about this is that I agree with you. I think you get that game alone gives him a look, no doubt. But he finished the regular season, with where is it at? 16 receptions for 182 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's what he finished the regular USFL season with. So you look at like the whole thing and you're like, this guy didn't really have a great year, and then balled out in that final game. And I agree with you. I think that's enough for teams to say, well, in big moments, this guy, he's good for something. Those 3 touchdown catches, by the way, were all very good, impressive catches. One of them, like,
not one of them was single covered. Like, I think he was double covered on all of them, at least.
Toe tapped 2 of them. It was an impressive showing. 26 years old. Yes, I agree with you. I think at some point somebody's like, hey, we got to get this guy, just to give him an opportunity to come in here. I mean, like, dude, you look at his career, like his resume. When he came to Pittsburgh, it was impressive. He played with Deshaun Watson, and who was Deshaun Watson's big? What was it? No, it wasn't DeAndre Hopkins.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, thank you. At Clemson, went to Philadelphia, I believe. Had a couple of, like, he's got 15 games of experience. He's got 6 games of starting experience under his belt. Like, he's done this before. He's yet to catch a touchdown. I'll give you that one. But for those 2 years, he was only in the league for 3 years. He was drafted in the 6th round in 2018, played in 2019, and then played in 2020 for 2 games. And then that was it. So at this point, you're 3 years removed from the league. You're only 26 years old. And then you just had this performance. Like, I agree with you. I think somebody's just going to be like, the best thing you could do as a bad football player who's like on the verge is to take a break. And, people forget that maybe you didn't work out in the NFL, and then they give you that next opportunity, or like, maybe he's evolved, blah, 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 blah. Million reasons. I think that he could find himself somewhere. I hope he does. He was a cool dude. I remember that in 2019. He was a real nice guy. Not going to be Pittsburgh. Hope it's not somewhere in the AFC North, because the Steelers just don't, if he does turn out like that, that's the last thing you want to hear is the memes of Pittsburgh getting rid of him. It's like, it wasn't his fault, man. Duck Hodges was throwing this guy a football. It just, it doesn't count. But good for Deion Kane.
Yeah, his year with the Steelers was real weird. Like, it wasn't.
That season does not count, in the grand scheme of the Pittsburgh Steelers and everything the Pittsburgh Steelers have ever done. And the 2019 season should just be eliminated. Like, it doesn't. At one point, the Pittsburgh Steelers walked out an offense with Duck Hodges. Jalen Samuels was their starting running back, with Benny Snell Jr. as their backup running back. Deion Kane started at wide receiver, with Juju was hurt for a little while, so I don't even remember who the other guy was out there. Nick Vannett was their starting tight end. Like, it was wild. That was my first year. That was my first year on the beat.
Was that the year Miles Garrett bonked
Yep. That was the
Mason? Yep.
Miles Garrett, Mason Rudolph year. Yes, it was. That was after. That was later in the season. That was Duck has it went Mason took over. Mason got concussed, I believe. Duck went in. Duck took over. Duck gets benched. Mason goes in. Mason gets smacked in the head with a helmet. Duck
So
goes back in.
Mason had been concussed earlier that year before he gets knocked over the head with a helmet.
That was the scariest year. Like, people want to make fun of Mason Rudolph. I'm not going to get into that right now, but that year for Mason Rudolph, his first concussion was not just a concussion. He was knocked out cold by Earl Thomas. Like, they had to take his helmet off on the field, carry him. Like, they picked him up. I remember, like, Zach Banner had one arm, somebody else had the other. Banner's crying as they're like walking him off the field. It was a vicious hit. And then later in the season, he gets smoked by Miles Garrett. Yeah, it was a rough year, man. Like, if you went to any doctor after that one, they'd probably tell you, all right, you should probably take a little bit of time off from this because this is getting dangerous. Like, wasn't Kenny Pickett's concussions. It was brutal concussions that year. Yeah. Rough year for Mason. And he got benched twice. No, once. And then in the Jets game, and then he finished off his year in the Jets game. He hurt his shoulder, broke his. I don't know if he broke his collarbone, but he did something to his collarbone, and that's how he ended it. And then Duck had to go back out there. It was
goddamn.
I know, dude. Rough year for Mason Rudolph, man. Rough year for Mason Rudolph.